Now, Jason worked with you back in that last course on, among other things, the DNS server, getting DNS services up and operational in an Active Directory domain. And as I said also here in this course, in order to get Active Directory running, Active Directory requires DNS services to be there. This is in part because the installation of Active Directory creates a number of what are called SRV records, or service records, inside of DNS. These SRV records are what allow clients to locate the different Active Directory services, as well as the different servers to find each other. You'll find that these servers, or the records, the SRV records in a domain, are here in these folders that exist below company.pri, or whatever your domain name is. And it is this long list of folders that contain all the variety of SRV records and CNAMEs that help these different servers and services locate each other, and the clients to locate the services themselves. So you can see here, if I scroll to the right just a bit, under MSDCS, and then DC and sites, and then the site name here, which is by default the default first site name, we have a list of TCP records here that correspond with Kerberos services and LDAP services here in the domain. The main idea here is that when a client is looking for Kerberos and LDAP services, that in this case exists in the site that is described by default first site name, they then know to go to this location, dc.company.pri, in order to find the LDAP server that would be listening for any LDAP requests they may be making. Now, what gets people confused sometimes is that even in a single domain controller environment, there are a large number of records that have to be created for Active Directory to do what it needs to do. And so being aware of what all these records are and really what they can do is something that can take a little bit of time, and you may never understand fully what all these records are intended to point clients towards. But what you are responsible for is ensuring that all of these records are correct. In an environment where I have dynamic updates installed and configured in DNS, this process is relatively easy because each domain controller will automatically enter the correct records into their DNS server as they're appropriate. And if changes are made to, for example, add additional domain controllers, or turn on or turn off services, or even to change site names, the domain controllers themselves will go about making the necessary changes in DNS. If you should end up in a situation, however, where you do have DNS SRV record registration issues, there are a couple of tools that you can use in order to kind of fix the problem. Now, the first of these tools works best in an environment that has dynamic updates turned on, because actually resolving a failed record can be solved very simply by just locating the domain controller where the record is missing and typing in the command ipconfig register DNS. This command will go about registering all the appropriate DNS records that are associated with this machine. You'll need to do it on every domain controller where you're missing records. This includes all the appropriate SRV records as well if this is a domain controller. So if you happen to find yourself in a situation where you go into DNS Manager and you're missing some DNS records, well, just typing ipconfig register DNS or probably rebooting the server generally will go about fixing those records inside of DNS. However, there are some situations, some environments where dynamic DNS is just simply not an option. Perhaps the Windows team lost the battle many years ago from the Unix team, and so the Unix group is now managing DNS, and they don't support dynamic DNS for the zones that you're using. First, my sincere condolences for you if that is an environment that you're in. Many of those situations have been resolved in recent years as people have recognized the value of dynamic DNS. But if you are still one of those environments, there is a location where you can go to find the long list of records that you'll need in order to get them populated into a non-dynamic DNS server. This is in Windows, System32, and config in that location. And if I do Notepad, the file name is netlogon.dns. This location here provides the entire list of records that need to get populated into DNS for this server. So this little text file here is something that you can give to perhaps your Unix people, or perhaps your Windows people if you don't have dynamic DNS in Windows, so that they can get entered into the DNS server appropriately for this zone. This list is generated dynamically by Active Directory Domain Services, so it's a handy little guide should you find yourself needing to cross-reference the records we are seeing with the records you should have.